So now we're talking about it's 2020. How will things have shifted between 2000 and 2020 in these 9 areas of our life? For many of you, much of this will have already happened. Some of us are in the transition to it happening. But the thing is, these will become predominant according to the predictions that this book made in 2007. All of these have positives as well as negatives. And a lot of it depends on which generation you're in. So it'll be positive for some in in one generation and negative for others in another generation. So I'll try and talk about this. But I want you to be thinking about this for you. So shift 1, people work at home. Well, hello from my home. I don't know where my camera is, but yes, there you are. So I'm at home making this video for you instead of standing in front of you in the classroom, which would be fun, but here I am. So commuting to an office will become a rarity, a thing of the past. A significant part of the workforce will work from home or telecommute. Okay, that is already happening, and the pandemic is going to speed this process up. After we get through this, as people have already made the transition to home, more people are going to want to work from home, and businesses are going to want more people to work from home. This is good news and bad news. It is a benefit to some, it's a detriment to others. It's a benefit to some businesses, it's a detriment to others. So think about that as one of the things that is already happening. Shift 2, intranets replace offices. Offices will diminish as primary workplaces. Intranets will replace physical offices for most businesses, companies, and nonprofit organizations. Okay, so these intranets are things like my neighbors use Microsoft Teams to have their business meetings. We are meeting on Zoom because that is one way that we can go through our business but still work from home. D2L has something called virtual classroom. I use Zoom in place of virtual classroom. Or Google Meets. All of these are ways to replace offices, and we are already there. And if we weren't there a month ago, we are there now because that's how we're conducting business. Shift 3, networks replace pyramids. The basic organizational structure of life in the last century, the organizational chart or pyramid, goes into steep decline. It is replaced by a superior organizational structure. The network. Okay, so I think that we can see this in the way of what we call the gig economy. Now, many workers are not actually employees. They are instead Uber drivers. They drive for Grubhub. They are adjunct teachers, meaning that they are basically contract workers. And so the whole idea of a chairman of the board and all the way down to worker, that system is getting changed, particularly at the bottom. The top might still have its structure in place, but the bottom is shifting rapidly. Again, positives and negatives there. Okay, shift 4, trains replace cars. Now this one bugs me because Arizona has done a lousy job of moving into the 21st century. It says the automobile, the dominant mode of transportation in the last century, loses its dominance and becomes a peripheral and supplemental mode of transportation. Trains and light rail become the dominant mode of transportation. I don't know. I think scooters are more dominant right now than trains and light rail in the state of Arizona. Um, and we do have the streetcar. That is our light rail at the moment, but we need to do a lot better. We should have been working on this for the last 20 years so that we are there, but we are not even close to, as a state, we are not close to creating this, which means we are behind the curve. Shift 5. Dense neighborhoods replace suburbs. Suburbs and suburban sprawl come to a halt and then recede. Towns and cities are reformulated around dense communities composed of shops, stores, and homes within walking distance of a light rail station. Okay, you can see this particularly around the U of A. However, out at Pima East Campus, you'll still see our suburbs are somewhat still spreading out, and transportation is still car dominant. Around here, around the U of A, we're more scooter dominant, but or bicycle dominant. But around the U is a good example of this, of how we're building tall buildings with apartments in the top, and then the bottoms are shops and restaurants and bars, and this is how it used to be more like 100 years ago. Okay. Shift 6. New social infrastructures evolve. The increasing inequality in wealth between the rich and the rest of society comes to a halt. The issue of inequality of wealth in society is addressed, and a variety of social reforms are implemented to restore more of a balance in income distribution. Woohoo! Now, this is a really positive thing that I, of course, as a liberal, see as a positive. And it certainly hasn't come to a halt yet. But I'd say that once again, the pandemic is really going to speed us into this situation. Think about our healthcare system. Our healthcare system, which is supposed to be the best in the world, has truly failed during this pandemic. And I think we're going to see a lot of repercussions from that, not only in these next few weeks, well, we've already seen it. The lack of testing, the lack of being able to get equipment, the patchwork pattern or patchwork network that we have put together of rules and what kind of medical care we should have and what kind of school closures we should have. All of that type of stuff is working right now piecemeal. One patchwork, one city, one town, one mayor, one governor at a time are creating a system. We've got to get these stimulus checks to people, but we don't have a good mechanism for that except for the income tax structure and those who have direct deposit. But that totally favors the more stable, the higher income, the people who have a more stable financial background or financial standing in the community. So these are areas that are going to come under a lot of change because of the pandemic. And we can only hope that that's going to be a really positive change. Now, shift 7. Now, this is a weird one, okay? But, and I don't have any great. Here, I'm going to give you some of my ideas, and I've talked about these in class, but I can't really say exactly how this is going to work. Shift 7. Cheating becomes collaboration. New values, work ethics, and behavior of the 21st century take over. Okay, I totally get that. Boys are leading the charge in values and behavior, just as they did 100 years ago. Okay, back the bus up here. What does this say? Let me take the first part. Cheating becomes collaboration. Absolutely, we see this happen in education. We become far more project oriented and group work oriented and workshop oriented where people work together. And that's a great thing. Boys are leading the change in values and behavior just as they did 100 years ago. This one scares me a little. However, a lot of it has to do with some of the concepts we've discussed. Remember, we did the Hemingway Man, where men were men, and then we went into this whole. Well, some of us haven't had this much. We didn't have this in class because we didn't get to it in time. But we went into the 1980s in particular, where women were the strong, smart ones. Guys were the dumb buffoons. We have we have some modules on this, some presentations on this, and particularly I'm talking about TV shows. And these TV shows were like Home Improvement or According to Jim or King of Queens or huge amounts of commercials, Dorito commercials, where always the guys are idiots and the women are like their mothers who have to come in and clean up after them and tell them to wash their hands and tell them how to do things. All right, we've undergone a shift of this next generation, but it's still stuck. I think I did a thing on commercials of insurance, and I'm trying to think which one it was, but it's where the guys are out and they don't know how to change a tire, okay? And their mothers are saying, oh, thank you to this insurance company for saving my boy when he didn't know how to change a tire. Okay, that's not particularly a positive image that we're sending from young American men or women. We also have commercials where women are taking on the positive roles of men and leaving the men mostly impotent here. Like there's one right now of a roadside assistance program where there's no talking, which is a sign of the male, but the woman is totally in charge, and she does it all with her phone. And I have those on the website. We'll try and get them talked about in class. But men have taken a real hit in the last number of years. But yet, things are changing to where the roles of women are being challenged again. And I've talked about this in class, particularly when it comes to the fact that our birth rates are slowing down. And we're concerned that the number of babies being born, women are older and older when they have babies. They have fewer babies. And in particular, we have fewer white babies. And what does that mean for America? So there's some things that are going on in society right now that I think speak to the idea of men's values changing again. I can't talk any more about it right now without really getting myself into trouble. So I'm going to stop here for that one. Shift 8. Half of all learning is online. Well, here we are, online. The traditional classroom rapidly becomes obsolete. Half of all learning is done online, changing the nature of how we learn and teach. And I can tell you that there has been, before the pandemic, a huge push to get us to move more and more online. And also after the pandemic, I think that because we've already done it, the emphasis on teaching online will become even stronger. In face-to-face classes, the numbers will go down. They won't disappear, but they will not have the status that they have up until now. Shift 9. Brick education becomes web-based. Well, hello again. Brick and mortar schools and colleges of the past century become outdated. All the education becomes web-based, providing a better education for both young people and adults. Okay, and this is going to go now back to, these are the same kinds of things that happened from 1900 until 1920. Well, education becoming web-based. Actually, I saw this presentation in 2007, and ever since then, I have never had a textbook in the classroom. Everything we do is online. Before I was in D2L, I had it in a different web program. You rarely, if ever, have to print out anything. Even though we meet in the classroom, all of my coursework, content, everything has been web-based. So because of this, this book I read and this presentation I saw in 2007, it blew my mind open and made me start looking at the ways that education was going to change and try and meet you or be here with you in 2020. And here I am on Screencast-O-Matic, gonna open this up load it up in my D2L. We're gonna discuss it in Zoom, and I'll remind you on Remind. Welcome to 2020. Our world is going to change. Much of it is going to be for the better. Welcome to the 21st century, people. I am so glad to be here with you, and I am glad that I'm going to be turning it over to you because you are the true citizens of the 21st century. And that is a great thing in my mind. I do have discussion questions up, and we will be discussing this article in class, or actually I should say on Zoom. So see you later. Bye.